Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk about real numbers and graphing real numbers. So before we do that, we first have to talk about what a real number is. So a real number is a number that can be physically graphed on a number line. So you've probably seen a number line before, but it's really important to review this. For a more basic number line, these could be a little bit more advanced. Before I'm just fixing the letter there. For a more basic number line, 0 is in the middle. So with that, we have our positive numbers on the right, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and our negative numbers on the left. Okay, so that's more of a basic number line where, again, 0 is in the middle. You have your positive numbers on the right and your negative numbers on the left. Now, the numbers you see that I put marks on, those are called integers. Your integers are your basic positive and negative numbers, including 0. Okay? So real numbers are numbers that can be graphed on a number line, and we could add to that definition a little bit. Real numbers are numbers that can be seen or used in everyday life. But for today's purposes, real numbers are numbers that could always be graphed or represented on a number line. So let's say we're given a problem that asks us to graph the numbers -4, 0, and -2 on a number line. Okay? So when you graph a number on a number line, you just put a dot or a point where it's located. So I'm going to make a number line, put 0 in the middle, and I put some positive numbers over here, and some negative numbers over here. Now, guys, there's no requirement as far as you go. You definitely want to have, though, at least 5 numbers on your number line. Okay, that way you're showing the viewer that you know where the number lies. But there's no requirement, so if you wanted to, you go up to 10 if you wanted to on each side. So you could do positive 10 on this side, and then negative 10 on your negative side. But all we do to graph these numbers, guys, is we put dots where they lie. So I put a point at 0, I put a point at -4, and I put a point at -2. Okay, these two numbers would be to the left of 0 because negative numbers are always less than 0 or to the left of it. So this would be these 3 numbers graphed on a number line. Hopefully, that should be pretty easy. Okay, so if you're given an integer and you're asked to graph it, all you have to do is put a dot right on that integer. Okay? Okay, so let's say we're asked to graph 3/8 on a number line. Okay? Well, the first thing I want you to discuss is 3/8. If you look at that fraction, notice the numerator is smaller than the denominator. That's really important. You know why? Because that means that this fraction is less than 1. It means it's smaller than 1. And since it's positive, when I graph this, it's going to be between 0 and 1. Now, I'm making my number line a little bit longer because I'm going to graph between 0 and 1. Notice I didn't put as many integers on it, but the number is going to be graphed right in here. Okay? So, one way you could do this problem is, since it's 3/8, we know it's between 0 and 1, all right? What we could do is, now again, we know it's between 0 and 1 anytime the numerator is smaller than the denominator, unless it would be a negative number. But we can make 7 marks in between 0 and 1. Now, why do I make 7 and not 8? So I'm making the mark because the 8th mark is the next number. So if you look, I have 8 spaces in between 0 and 1, right? There's 8 spaces, but I put 7 marks because, again, the 8th mark is the next number, which is 1. And what I could do, one way I could do this is put it on the 3rd mark. All right? So that's one way to graph 3/8. I'm going to do the same problem in a different way because I think this is the way probably more of you are going to do it. And that would be to make it a decimal because sometimes people struggle with their understanding of fractions. So another way to do this is to make 3/8 into a decimal. And this is a very important skill regardless of your math background, by the way. So in order to make any fraction to a decimal, we divide the numerator by the denominator. So I'm going to make a division sign over here. My numerator goes underneath the division sign. Our denominator goes outside. And I'm going to make this 3.00 because we're going to divide. Okay? Now, if you hopefully remember division from the middle school, since there's no decimals in my divisor, I bring up the decimal. Okay? And now we're dividing. So we're looking in, and we're seeing, does 8 go into 3? No, so I put a 0 there. Okay? So now we want to see if 8 goes into 30, and it does. So you have to know our multiplication facts for division. 8 goes into 30 3 times without going over, because 8 times 3 is 24. If we put a 4 there, 8 times 4 would be 32. That's too big. We subtract and we get 6. You might have to borrow here. Okay? Bring down our 0. Now we do 8 in the 60. Well, 8 goes into 60 7 times. How do I know that? Because I'm good with my multiplication facts. In order to divide, you want to make sure you're good with your multiplication facts. So now 8 times 7 is 56. We subtract and we get 4. We could continue this if we wanted to. I could add another 0 and bring this down, and the answer would be 5 here. But you could actually, 5 would go right there, okay? And that would actually be the exact decimal. But you could stop right here, guys, because here's why. We are graphing on a number line. So we're not going to zoom in on your graphs with 100 times magnification. But you have to be accurate. So what we're asking you to do is go to the hundredths place, which is 2 places after the decimal, because that way you could round to the tenths. So we could stop right here. Okay, that's the hundredths place to 7. So we have 0.37. And I want to round that to the tenths. So if I round that to the tenths, the 7 is going to make the 3 become a 4. If it's 5 or above, give it a shove. If it's 4 or below, let it go. So we're rounding. Okay, so now, for some people, it's a little bit easier to graph that decimal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 9 marks in between 0 and 1. Okay? And you just try your best to make sure they're equal spacing. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right? Now, why did I make 9 marks and not 10? Each of those marks we made represents a tenth. But the 10th mark is the next number. Okay? So we make 9. And then I put it on the 4th mark that we make. So right there. And now I just like to label it above 3 over 8, the original number we had. So for most of you, it's probably going to be easiest to make your fractions into decimals. Okay? And then graph it. Because some people have trouble just looking at a fraction and knowing where it lies. Okay? I wanted to mention the first way just in case, but this is the way you would do it by making your fraction into a decimal. Okay? And by the way, if you have an accommodation, you can use a calculator. We definitely want you to use it, but please make sure you show this work. So because this is a valuable skill to be able to look at a number and know where it lies and also divide. So if you are able to use a calculator, please make sure you still show this work, and you can use your calculator to assist you with the multiplication facts, the subtraction, etc. involved with the division process. So still make sure you show this if you're able to use a calculator. Okay? So let's look at another one. Graph 11 over 3 on a number line. Okay? Now, it's tough to look at that and know exactly where it lies for a lot of people. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide the numerator by the denominator. Now before we do anything, notice that 11 is a lot bigger than the denominator of 3. So therefore this fraction is going to be greater than 1. Okay? So we go over here. We put 11 underneath and 3 on the outside. Now, I want to clear up another misunderstanding that I hear from some people once in a while. It does not matter which number is bigger or smaller. Okay? The numerator always goes underneath your division sign. The denominator always goes outside. Always. It has nothing to do with the size of the numbers. If you forget that, what I recommend you do is when you get your fraction, make a division sign right away. And you can see the number closest or the innermost in the division sign, the 11, that will be the number that stays underneath. And the 3, the denominator, you just slide it to the outside. So that's a trick to help you remember kind of what number goes where. But now we'll divide. I put 11.00. We'll bring up our decimal, and now we divide. Well, 3 does not go into 1, but it does go into 11 3 times. So I subtract. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. Subtract, and we get 2. Bring down the 0. Remember, we're only going to go to the hundredths place. Now we do 3 into 20. Well, 3 goes into 26 times, because 3 times 6 is 18. If we use 7, that would be too big. And now we bring down our 0 to continue. And by the way, if you ever subtract and you get a number here that's larger than your divisor, that means you didn't use the biggest number possible. So you want to use a higher number. Okay? And now 3 goes into 20 again 6 times. And this would actually be a repeating pattern. But we're going to stop right there because we got to the hundredths place. We're going to round to the tenths place. So the 6 tells this 6 to go up by 1. So the rounded answer is about 3.7. Now we can graph it. Here's the easy part. So I make a number line. Okay. Now it's 3.7. So that means it's going to be between 3 and 4. So we make 9 marks in between 3 and 4. And since we rounded it to 3.7, we put it on the 7th mark. And I always like to label the number above it, the original number, 11 over 3. Okay? Beautiful. So here's what we're going to do to finish. I'm going to give you a problem. I want you to try it totally on your own at your seat. Okay? In your notes, I should say. And when you see the video, or when you see the problem, pause the video, do it on your own, and once you're done, then play the video, see if you got it right. Okay? Okay, so here we go. I want you to graph negative 13 over 7 on a number line. Okay, so again, pause the video. Try this problem. The next 15 seconds will be blank. Okay, hopefully you tried that on your own. That's very, very important. So I'm not going to worry about the negative sign till the end. That will mess you up. So I know our final answer is going to be negative, right? So we're going to be somewhere to the left of 0. I also noticed that our numerator is bigger than our denominator, so that means that this fraction, forgetting about sign, is going to be greater than 1. Okay? But let's divide it. We always divide our numerator by our denominator. So 13, 7. Now I make this 13.00 and bring up your decimal right away before you do anything. Okay? So now does 7 go into 1? Well, no. So I can put a 0 there or move on to the next number, including the next number, I should say, 13. Well, 7 goes into 13 one time. 2 would be too large. 2 would be 14. So we subtract and we get 6. Bring down your 0. And now we continue with the division. 7 goes into 68 times because 8 times 7 is 56. Okay? We subtract and we get 4. Bring down our last 0 there. We could keep going if we wanted to, but we're only going to go one more place. 7 goes into 40 5 times, 35. And then 5 is our remainder. And again, we could continue, but remember, we're not graphing to the exact perfect spot. We're graphing relatively close to nearest 10th. So we have 1.85, and the 5 tell this 8 to go up to 9. Now, guys, if this 5 was a 4 or any number less than 5, you would keep the 8 the same. Okay? But the 5 is going to bump that 8 up once, so it's going to be negative 1.89. Okay? And now we can graph it. So since it's negative 1.9, I think I might have said 1.89 by mistake. I apologize if I did. Since we rounded it to negative 1.9, that's going to be between negative 1 and negative 2. Okay? So we make our 9 marks. And I'm going to put it on the 9th mark because the 10th mark is negative 2. So here, and I like to write the original number, negative 13 over 7. Perfect. So hopefully you found this video lesson helpful. In order to graph a fraction, a lot of you will probably make it into a decimal. That's probably the most helpful thing. Always divide your numerator by your denominator. Okay? Thank you very much for your attention. Hopefully you found this video lesson helpful. If you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you very much and have a fantastic day.